Hello, I'm Dr. Tiffany Jana, StartOut Board Member, and I'm so excited to join you this evening. For those of you who are new to StartOut is a nonprofit organization founded in 2009 that focuses on empowering LGBTQ+ entrepreneurs. StartOut's mission is to increase the number, diversity, and impact of LGBTQ+ entrepreneurs and amplify their stories to drive the economic empowerment of the community. In essence, StartOut is about networking, entrepreneurship, support, and community. If you are a founder, StartOut provides direct individual support through mentorship, office hours, investor connections, and the StartOut Growth Lab. Consider joining StartOut by visiting www.startout.org. I am so excited to introduce our esteemed guest, Arlan Hamilton. I will set the stage with a brief bio, and then we'll move on to our much anticipated discussion. Arlan Hamilton built a venture capital fund from the ground up while homeless. She is the founder and managing partner of Backstage Capital, a fund that is dedicated to minimizing funding disparities in tech by investing in high potential founders who are people of color, women, and/or LGBTQ+. She started from scratch in 2015, and Backstage has now raised nearly $12 million and invested in more than 130 startup companies led by underestimated founders. In 2018, Arlan co-founded Backstage Studio, which launched 4 accelerator programs for underestimated founders in Detroit, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and London. Arlan was featured on the cover of Fast Company magazine in October 2018 as the first Black woman non-celebrity to do so, and her book, It's About Damn Time, came out on Penguin Random House's business imprint currency. Please welcome Arlan Hamilton.
Hello. Thank you for having me, and thanks for being here for sure. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for writing this amazing book. So the first thing I have to tell you is that I actually read your book with my eyeballs.
Okay, yeah.
With the eyeballs.
You're 60% of the population, or no, 70% of the population.
So in the world that competes for eyeballs, getting my full attention, I feel like, it's a big deal because, like you, the audiobooks have been a game changer for me.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's cool. Did you have the physical copy or the ebook?
I did the ebook copy.
Okay.
Because I find that my mind wanders less. I didn't want to miss a single moment, and that was a completely worthwhile investment.
Oh wow! Well, thank you.
You're welcome. The first question I have for you, I also narrated my first book, but none of the others. I'm curious about your experience narrating your own story. Do you think that you're gonna write more books, narrate more books, and what was that like?
Well, I can tell you that we're definitely having a book 2. Book 2 is happening. More details later. And if they'll let me, narrate, I will. Yeah, I usually, like in the first contract, even though it was like my first book, and I was kind of throwing things around, and I was saying I really want to. One thing is I want to be on the cover because it's about representation. And the other thing is I want to record. I want have the chance to record the audio because I love podcasting and I love audio. I'm very bullish on it in general. And so hopefully I'll do it this time. The experience was really cool. I recorded, everything I say sounds very conceited now if you put it in order, but I recorded at a studio called Arlan Studios.
Nice. Oh, nice. Had a little bit of creative control there.
Yeah, well, it was spelled differently with a Y instead of an A. So it's Arlyn. It was in Austin, Texas. And here's the thing. I recorded in first week of March. A few weeks prior to that, we were getting ready to record it, and it was like, the publisher said, okay, I'm going to set you up at a place in Los Angeles. It'll take you 3 days, something like that. So we're going to find a studio near your house. And I was like, exciting, cool, let's go. Because that is, where I live. And then I'm looking at Instagram, and I just stumble across a post that Brene Brown put up because I follow Brene. And she was taking a picture under this sign that said Arlan Studios. And I was like, am I making that up? Am I hallucinating? And it's actually where she does her podcast there. She does a lot of things at Arlan Studios in Austin. So I asked the publisher, I was like, I don't want to be a diva because I don't even know if I can switch this, but I will fly myself to Austin if I can do it there. And they said, yeah, let's see if it's available. Turned out to be available. It was such a like homey kind of place. And I'm originally from Texas, so it had that vibe that it really was conducive to being very comfortable to record it. And yeah, apparently it went well.
Amazing. I'm also from Texas, so hey.
Oh, cool. What city?
El Paso.
Oh, nice. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I grew up in Dallas. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we have so much in common as far as some of the experiences and identities that I took your book really personally. So, you know, when we talked earlier, I said, you know, I'm really grateful it was about damn time that book was written, and the representation really does matter. We just don't get to see ourselves reflected in that way. And what you've offered is such a gift to the world.
Have you ever had a queer breakup in an IHOP parking lot?
No, that was uniquely yours. Thank you. But I did. I will tell you that it was mildly triggering, but not in the bad way. Yeah, I cried at least 3 times, and maybe we'll get to those moments. I'll share with you some of those. But it's such a great book. So my next question. Your focus and your dedication is like really commendable. You identify clear goals on your journey, and everything that you've done, everywhere that you've been, has helped you on the other side of achieving each of the goals that you set out for yourself. So I'm curious to hear from you, what do you think prevents aspiring entrepreneurs from being as focused on their goals and intentions as you are? Because not everyone is as successful as you, and I feel like your focus might be one of those keys.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it like I have it all figured out. I also have a great privilege in now being able to have worked my way up until having a team that is just, you know, Johnny on the spot, and it's very amazing. I take some credit there because I got myself in the position to have that, and I think it's great, but it's pretty awesome. That's interesting the way you frame that. So I think it's like a muscle that you have to build over time, just like a lot of things, consistency is the cure for. and focus for me is, there's a determination that I have, and there is a clear path to what I want. And that can be like in the moment, you know, like if I'm negotiating with someone, or it can be this, what does 20 years away look like, or anything in between. And so I'm just sort of, I kind of, ever since I can remember, have said, okay, I want to do this thing, so I'm going to go ahead and do this thing. And it wasn't that it became easy to me. It wasn't that I went to the lowest hanging fruit. It was that I felt that as long as it wasn't bending sort of gravity or space-time continuum, it wasn't magic. If it could be achieved by human, then why not me as the human? And so I just kind of get locked in to what I want to either achieve myself or see achieved.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, there's all kinds of theory around manifestation and metaphysics, and you know, that's why do people vision board at the new year? Yeah. So one of the tools that you offer in the book, which I think is brilliant, is to write your own headlines. Yeah. And so you talk about these moments where you wrote your headline and you're like, this is what I'd like to see written about myself. This is what I'd like to see be true one day. Do you have a favorite headline that you wrote for yourself?
I think the headline, Arlan Hamilton's Backstage Capital invests in 100 companies, with a date that was scheduled for 2020, like I was in a time machine or something, that I started writing. I said it in 2014 out loud, but I started typing it into my headliner draft in 2015. And we reached that in May of 2018. And I believe that the headline is really close to that.
That's amazing.
It's really close to that. Yeah.
It's amazing. I always tell people what the difference between a wish, a dream, and a goal is a date. And putting that date on it is so important.
Yeah, that's right. That's very good. Yeah.
So there, you talked about kind of a litmus test for our business ideas. And you said, as if you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking about doing something, you want to start something. If you think about the world in 5 years and whatever you've conceived doesn't exist, like, is that going to be okay with you? I found that to be a brilliant, brilliant construct. And my question for you is, do you have advice for BIPOC and queer founders who are trying to convince cisgender, heterosexual, white VCs that those ideas that we think are going to be important in 5 years are actually going to be important?
Well, my honest answer to that is exactly how you framed it, is don't try to convince them. You know, I have a limit these days to who I'm trying to convince and how much I'll try to convince somebody, because you know what you're working on is real. I knew what I was working on was real when very few people believed it. And of course, you part of your job as a founder, or part of your job as just like a visionary person, is to bring people along with you and to help them see the future as you see it. But when it comes to like really trying to, it's almost like, you know, I don't want to go too weird with it, but it's almost like you're trying to convince people that the earth is round, or, you know, there's only so much that you need to give of yourself to try to educate other people in this case. And for so long, for so many years, we have been, including me, you know, have been begging certain groups to see us and to believe in us and this and back us. And now I just tell investors, look, without trying to be cocky here, you're missing out. You know, it's obvious at this point. I don't know much else to tell you, but the facts that I have here, the stats, the traction, looking at these founders as they are. I was going to call them artists because I'm so used to that music world, but it's the same, right? Looking at the founders as they are, seeing what they've been able to accomplish with so little, and how far they've come. And if you were to put them pound for pound on equal ground, would probably lap most of the people that are considered the top favorites, you know, in that world. If that, all of that is not enough to convince you, I'm not going to try to, you know, beg you to be richer. I'm not going to beg you to ride our coattails. No way, you know? So that's my real honest answer. Is like,
I love it.
How do you convince people? Don't.
Well, it's interesting.
That's one way of saying it.
One of the things that I find, and I've both experienced it and seen other entrepreneurs who've had that experience, is you're not, you know, there are a lot more funds that exist now with similar purpose, like focusing on these, you know, underestimated people. And when some of those groups, you know, the usual suspects see us coming, they want to just point us in that direction. So it's really like, no, we don't want to get rich with you. Go find Arlan and that crew over there.
Yeah, that happens. That happens. I think that's just myopic thinking. It's boring to me. You know, it's underwhelming, their lack of creativity and their lack of vision. And that happens so often where someone's like, you know, I'm not going to invest in you, but you should go see what Backstage is doing. Go see what Charles Hudson's doing. See what Monique Woodard's doing. See what Marla Nichols is doing. It's like you're really going to turn away an opportunity because you have such a one monochromatic way of looking at life. It's just so odd to me. From now, it would be different if this was from the stodgy old guard that is, you know, Wall Street or private equity. This is supposed to be the most innovative part of private equity as an asset class, or an asset class, right? This is supposed to be literal moonshot, literal. You can't imagine. There are people. I got mad a couple of years ago because at CES, the big tech conference, there were stripping robots, like female stripping robots. I was mad, yes, because they had strippers, that, you know, they found a way to have strippers at this thing at CES, but I wasn't mad about that as much. I don't have a problem with strippers as such. Mm-hmm. I was mad because the same year you could barely find a woman on stage speaking. So I said, how do these brilliant minds, you know how the intellect it takes, the creativity, the pure talent it takes to create a stripping robot that can, I mean, it's like mind-boggling. But those same minds can't figure out how to pick up a phone and call a woman, or non-binary person to be on a panel.
It is mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling. It's a laziness that is sometimes attributed to us.
Ooh.
And it's projection.
Wow. I love that you just say the things, Arlan. You're just, it's wonderful. Carry on saying the things out loud.
I feel, you know.
So, okay, one of the things that makes you unique in this, you know, in this landscape is that, you know, in a world of people who are pattern matching, you know, monochromatically in their own image, you're pattern matching for grit. And it's something that you obviously have experience with. So what other uncommon or underappreciated skills have you encountered while you've been listening to the pitches of underestimated people?
Oh yeah, there's just a certain, I think it's like a MacGyver kind of vibe to it. I know half the people know who MacGyver is, half don't, but it's that figuring out. You have a toothpick, a cotton ball, and you know, a one shoe, you know, that's not your size, and you come out with a 3-piece suit. You know, you figure stuff out. That, it to me is like the favorite, my favorite part of it. I think I've said multiple times that if I see someone who is handling, either carrying or managing in a room now with COVID, their child, especially a younger child, while they're also working, to me, that is very commendable. It's also indicative of their multitasking skills. It's also indicative of their passion for what they do, because they're still there. They could have chosen not to be, because that is a tough situation to be in. And I say that as someone who doesn't have a child, but I can imagine. And I you know, I can use my imagination, which a lot of people, like men, apparently can't, like a lot of white men can't do, apparently, for some reason. White straight men, I'll say that. Yeah, so it's, you're asking me a different question. I'm trying to get my little digs in, but I'll come out of that. But I see a lot of positive things. I see a lot of things, you know, of course you see some things that you're like, oh, I know where that came from. I know why you're probably underselling yourself, or I know why you're probably overselling this other thing and putting too much hype on this thing, because that's sort of what we've been handed. But that's the word I'm looking for, is ingenuity. And that's what I see time and time again. That is so exciting and thrilling to watch unfold.
Yeah. So for those who don't know who MacGyver is, MacGyver is personified ingenuity. Perfect. All right, so you described your childhood in Texas. Yay, go Texas. And you said that you felt like a citizen of the world, needing to be connected to people overseas without knowing why. So it was in this part of the book that my first bout of tears took place. You said, when you feel like an outsider, the urge to find your people, folks who see you as you, becomes unstoppable. Like that. I feel like the StartOut community, queer founders of color, like this is something that makes us unique. Can you speak a little bit to that edge? Because I feel like it's an edge. I feel like it's an advantage, being what other people might consider disadvantaged, underestimated, gives us an edge like nothing else.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in the book and in life repurposing things, sometimes repurposing negative things into positive. A little bit of it is being delusional in a good way, you know, like protecting and putting a positive spin on things. And this certainly, I think if you think about movies, I'm going to get it wrong because I've never been one to be really clear on what Star Trek and Star Wars are, but like the Marvel movies and the DC movies, I think they were built based on most of them remind me about queer youth. You know, you're sort of this outcast, or you feel like you're by yourself, and then you see someone climb a building and you're like, wait a minute, you know, I can fly and they can climb a building. What's going on? I see you from across the space. And that's how it kind of feels. So the positive spin is, yes, you may not blend in and feel very comfortable with a lot of people, but the people that you do find, the tribe that you do find, is just such a strong and talented and inspirational bunch, because we've all gone through some stuff in a special way. And so it's you have that. It's almost like either a first or a second sorority fraternity for you. If you already have one, it's great to have another. If you don't have one like me, it's great to have that as a foundation. And I saw that firsthand when I was working on my blog, Your Daily Lesbian Moment, several years ago, when I was first in MySpace and Facebook and then Instagram a little bit. But it was mostly like, just seeing for years how people who are in these small towns who didn't really feel like they fit in anywhere could come to one place and really feel like they fit in.
So beautiful. So it's interesting because, this is clearly a book that serves, entrepreneurs and folks who are, trying to find their path and set their goals and hit those marks and maybe follow in your footsteps in some large way or some small way. And so you talk about in the book, you went on this journey to meet 10,000 people, and I'm going to let the folks who haven't read the book find out why you did that. But one of the things you said, which I love, is more than anything, I learned that when you let your curiosity about people prevail, you see that people who may look and seem completely different from one another actually have more in common than meets the eye. There are threads that connect us all, and only by being insatiably curious about others can we discover them. Mic drop. I bawled again. That was the second time I cried. Because my work is bringing people together across differences, creating safe spaces for all of us. And I feel like this is so much more than a business book. This is so much more than just representation. There's so much wrapped up. This is the kind of story that brings people together and gives people an opportunity to see a window into a world that they might not know. So I'm curious to hear from you in your reactions to the book. Are you getting a critical mass of folks who don't have as much in common with you finding this book and connecting with it?
Yeah. When we were thinking about, and I say we, I mean, I have a co-writer, Rachel, who's listed on the front of the book. There's an agent that helped me get the book deal, and there's the editor at the publishing house, and we all worked really closely together. And when we were thinking about, like, when they were asking me, who do you want this book to be for? A lot of times authors or anybody will say, well, anybody can read it, because you want more people to buy it. You want as many people, you don't want to exclude most people, right? But they really, really hone in. They've done hundreds of books. So they say, no, really, who is that main person? I said, well, I think the main person, if we're going to do levels, the very main person is probably a woman of color, 25 to 45, who has an entrepreneurial spirit, in some way or another, and is English speaking, and that's probably the very first thing. And then outside of that is more women, more LGBTQ folks, and then outside of that is maybe gay white men, and then outside of that is straight white men, and it's way out here. And I said, because I've been in rooms full of straight white men speaking, and I know how the reaction is. I said, I understand that from a marketing and a business perspective, that you needed me to say that, give you that. And I think it's very helpful to be clear. But I believe and I hope that everybody sort of feels like they can find something in this book. And after it was released, it was just an overwhelming onslaught of real positive love, right? And so many straight white men. And I'm talking not just people who are already consider themselves allies. I'm talking about people who were kind of, some people were kind of forced to read it. Some people, it was sort of something that happened with their company. You had to read this, or, or they're let me read it to dog it or something like that. I mean, people wrote to me and continue to write to me from all walks of life. And they have different things that they connect with. And I remember very clear as day, there's this white man, probably in his 30s. And he's kind of, from the South, Midwest or South. And he's wearing flannel, and I, might have grown up on a farm or something, and he was just I never imagined that I would connect so much with this book, and I think he had to read it for an interview for something, for like a kind of a something that was going to be seen across the country. So he had to read, and he was just like, I have to tell you, I never thought I'd connect so much with this book, but I see myself in it in so many ways. And it just happened so many different places, different ages, across different ages, which is really cool. Definitely has been awesome seeing it come from different countries. I had an amazing interview and conversation with someone in Japan. And they asked me questions that I had never really even thought about, about the U.S. and relations here, race relations and economic relationships and everything like that. And it was just so it was just amazing. So yeah, to answer your question, I have had people from all over relate to this. And I've also, I've seen a couple of people say, not really happy with the book. And that has been surprisingly low. I was ready. I was ready because you're putting it out into the world. So of course, some people are not going to like what you have to offer. What kind of tipped me off that it was going to be okay though? Early on, I got this review. And I'm not a big person thinking about reviews, and I certainly don't read a lot of comments. That's like poison. I haven't read 90% of Amazon comments. Couldn't tell you what they say. But the reviews, I was being taught about publishing, so I wanted to keep up with the reviews at the beginning. And they said, this reviewer, this is a guy, he is usually very strict. He's not going to play around. Nothing cutesy's going to go past him. Let's see what he says. He gave it a great review. He thought it was great. So I said, oh, that's interesting that it's passing different tests.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's interesting that it's not just, I didn't write a book that I hope that only one group would, you just tell me lavish, great feedback on me.
Oh, Arlan,
yeah, exactly.
We worship and adore you, darling. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted it to be I wanted to help people, and I wanted it to be inspirational, but I also wanted you to be able to have a critical eye to it and ask questions, and it opened up more questions.
Well, I could not be more pleased to hear that, because as I was reading this, that's one of the ways that I feel connected with the world. I speak a bunch of languages. I've lived all over the world. I feel like a citizen of the world, like you do, right? Connected to people that I can't see and don't know. And that was, there was a pulse that just ran through this book that said, this is humanity. This is the human experience. And you talk about humor and hope and humanity. And it's like, there's so much here that I believe anyone can connect with who's willing to open their mind and open the book. So, so glad to hear that, because the power of this narrative to open minds, to create new connections, and to give people, just inspiration to make decisions differently than how they've made them before as it comes to relating to humanity. So powerful, so powerful.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's going to be on my required reading list from now on. Thank you very much, Arlan.
Awesome.
All right. So you took us in this book on an extraordinarily star-studded journey. I felt like I was there with you when you saw Janet Jackson. I felt like I was with you when you met Alanis Morissette, because your ability to translate experience and feelings into words is just extraordinary. So I have two questions. You can answer either or both. It's a choose your own adventure portion of the evening. Okay. All right. So do you feel that the ability to weave an engaging narrative is an important skill to entrepreneurial success, or have you ever been blown away by a pitch narrative?
I'll try to answer both. Yeah, I do think it's a great skill. I try to make sure people understand when I talk about narrative and storytelling and articulation that I don't necessarily mean you need to be cookie cutter, you need to be polished, you need to even be grammatically correct, actually. You know what I'm saying? Some of it, because I don't want you to unsharpen those edges, that make you uniquely yourself. And that's what sometimes that advice comes across as. It's like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to be articulate. I'm supposed to be professional and all of that. And to me, that translates to kind of just everybody being in the same page, cut from the same cloth. And I don't necessarily like that. But I do think that that's why I have the use your voice, find your voice section and use your voice section, because you can use narrative to change your life. Like if you think about my story, I use narrative based on the story prior to it, the 35 years prior, to change my life in 5 years.
Wow.
Completely different. Maybe I'll do that again, who knows what a decade from now will look like. And certainly the amplification side of what we do, which is one of the 3 pillars of what we do at Backstage, the amplification part will absolutely mean that other people will be inspired and somebody will start a company because it's already happening, of course, but that is the inspiration that you can put on people, that you can kind of share. It's like a gift to other people. And yeah, I think it's important. I remember, if you'll indulge me, let me have, go back this far. 2017, August, I hadn't had a lot of press. I mean, I had some, but it wasn't like, wasn't like anything. I was heads down working. And a journalist wanted to interview me. And we did like 3 different interviews, and it was going to be this big interview. And they just touched on, like I touched on for a second, hey, yeah, I was homeless right before I started this. The rest of it wasn't about that. And so it's probably hard to think about that. But before this, that was not the narrative of my story. Right. So he said, okay. And I said, hey, don't make this like a homeless to Harvard thing. Don't make this rags to riches, because that's not what this is. And he's like, I have to write it, and I can't tell you what my editor's going to make this title, right? So I wake up to Arlan, homeless to Harvard. It was like this big, and there's so many people read it. And I literally went under the covers, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is what everyone's going to think of me every single time they talk to me. This is really not good. I don't like this. And I was really upset about it. I was, precious and da-da-da. And then someone reached out to me in a DM the same day, and they said, I am homeless right now. I'm living out of my car, and I was ready to give up. And I saw this, scrolling on my phone, and give me a year, and I'm going to do something with that year. And I was like, oh, and I just had this sort of like physical, like spirit came out of me or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, this has nothing to do with me. This is not mine to like or not like. This is not mine to try to control or not control. This is a lot of things. And that kind of, actually, it was 2016. And that actually kind of set me on the path to start speaking, doing public speaking. So I think that if you can find a way, in whatever way is comfortable to you, doesn't have to be boisterous or big, but any way that's comfortable to you, if you can express what it is you do, what your company does, how it's impacting, how it's not, whatever, I think it does take you to a different tier. It gives you more opportunities. And what was the second part of the question?
Oh, look, I don't know, Arlan, you done made me cry in the interview. That's rude.
It might have been the second part of the question.
It's both. I think you answered them. Oh, have you ever been blown away by?
Oh, have I been blown away?
Yeah. Like if there's one that stands out.
Ooh, well, I've just been blown away by many times. I've seen thousands of pitches. So yes, the answer is yes. I'm also blown away by different people's ability to just kind of know themselves, and to know their customer. I think of two come to mind real quick. One is Blavity and Afrotech.
Yes.
And one is Wildfang. Mm-hmm. Having known Wildfang since 2013, 2 years before I had any money, or 2.5 years, and just having known how much they knew their person, and how that's kind of evolved. And then Blavity with their different, like it's it's again, you know, it's the attracting what you want to be part of this. So it's like a self-manifestation thing. So both of those companies, they're both startups. They're both driven by very strong-minded, strong-willed women. And they're both like a factory of bringing more people in, because they represent what people are attracted to. And then they double down on that, and then they bring more people in. And I think that is 50% of that is narrative.
Yes, that's amazing. Okay, so now that you done made me cry and you helped inspire someone, and I hope that person made it into a new situation. Did they follow up with you after that year?
I don't think they did, but I think that we both knew that they didn't. I think that it was, I think it was more in the inspiration of it.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of people do the follow-up and plenty of those stories too, which is like, you know, any of them could be made into a movie. You know what I mean?
So, okay, so you talk about using humor to diffuse challenging situations, and being an underestimated and underfunded person can really suck. So this could have been, and I halfway expected it to be a mildly depressing read. I was blown away. It was infused with joy and love and laughter and light. So can you share a little bit about how you sustain your sense of joy even when things get hard? Because I personally feel like, you know, like what is it, Adrienne Marie Brown, pleasure activism, liberation through joy. I feel like you've got, you know, a pretty good handle on joy during things that are difficult to build and grow and change.
Yeah, it's definitely, my friend Christy told me a couple of years ago that she read that like joy is the hardest thing for people to allow themselves to feel, or something like that. Wow. It's like the hardest emotion for people to allow themselves, give themselves permission to feel. And I felt that because I definitely have, I guess it's a couple of things. So I have always felt like I didn't, it's not that like this, anybody should be sad for me, but I don't feel like I had much of like a childhood. I felt like I was very much so serious early on. And so as an adult, I like to be silly and I like to kind of have fun. And also I just have always had this wacky sense of humor, whether or not I was delivering the punchline or just capturing it, like observing what makes something funny. I've always had this wacky sense of humor. So I could be literally like sitting down, like, I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight. And I could actually find something funny about that, like how ridiculous that is. And find something, like I could be, you know, getting ready, like, okay, counting my little change and saying, okay, can I get a taco from Taco Bell, literally? And then look across the street and see someone trip, and then like see them look around and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's like the universe keeping things light, you know, for me. And then in general, I think it does help that I think of things in such long-term ways, because I'm not thinking, okay, this, and I don't mean like everyday things, because I am human, so sometimes I do pick at little things, but I mean like, okay, let's say $1 million was supposed to be coming in, and then it doesn't come in because somebody changed their mind. That's the kind of stuff people get real serious about, because it's a serious thing. But because I think about, well, is this 1 million going to be so terrible 5 years from now? Am I even going to remember it? Because I would have picked myself back up, figured something else out. Is that the case? Because I can think of those long-term things, I can pick myself back up. I can not be bogged down and just sort of caught and spin out and say, oh my God, woe is me. And I don't know what to do, and this is the end of the world. I can say, that is terrible, and I'm gonna like be upset about that for a couple days. I really am gonna be real upset about that, and I'm gonna cuss somebody out probably. But I'm gonna be okay, and I'm gonna move on, and we're gonna figure this out. And you know, some of it too is like I do have certain times where I'm just like really caught up, and then I'll just like say, no, I gotta go watch something funny. I gotta go watch something or listen to something funny. This is that, and that does it. That loosens it up.
I love it. I love it. So I used to think that 42 was the answer to life, the universe, and everything for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fans out there. But after reading your book, I have to concur with you that being so deeply, truly yourself as a non-negotiable is the answer to everything. And I think that that is something that is powerful, that resonates with, you know, our start out founders for sure. But as the self is ever evolving, as anyone who's followed your journey has certainly been able to witness, thanks to the generosity of your spirit in sharing this narrative, can you give us any insight on what's next for you? Are you retiring to San Sebastian or what?
Oh man. Well, I turned 40. I will turn 40 on October 30th. So that's just 2 weeks from this Friday.
Yep.
I will, I'll officially be grown. That's what I think. I think that's like, I'm excited about that. I'll be grown. And that means I will have a shorter temper. I will be more like, you know, get off my lawn, because I've been working on that for about a decade. I'll have that mentality all over Twitter. I think I'm very excited about the next 10 years. I'm mostly thinking about the next 10 years. I don't know if I've gotten too far. I've gotten 10 years and maybe 100 years out. So 100 years out is the legacy, but the 10 years, I don't think I'm too far past the 10 years. And I'm thinking about all of, like, on a personal level, I'm thinking about just building the majority of my life's wealth in that time, just so that I can spend it wisely and impactfully. I'm very excited about that. I think that so many pieces of fruit are going to bloom and come to fruition during that time from all of the past decades seeds. And that's exciting, really exciting when it comes to these founders. And the intro is a little dated because we're at 150 companies now. We've passed 12 million. You know, we're going into, and I think I might have had something on my chin the whole time. Thank y'all. Appreciate you for letting me.
I didn't see it. I don't think anybody else did.
And so I think you're just going to see we just had this Zoom with about 40 or so of our portfolio company founders, and people are back to back. You know, we say, can you tell everybody what you do? It's just back to back to back to back, just like mind blowing after mind blowing thing. And it's just, I just sat there and I thought, and this was just on Monday, and I thought, wow, I could retire to San Sebastian. Not that I'm like, you know, I don't have anything to kind of prove anymore, but I feel like I just feel so much trust in the work of other people. And I just feel like, wow, this is what, if I could have imagined anything 5 years ago, 7 years ago, this would have exceeded all of those wildest dreams. So this is already such a gift, and the rest of it's gravy, you know, but you know me, that means I'm going to go into another gear.
That's why I asked the question. I know. I'm like, we are all sitting on the edge of our seats waiting to see what comes. So
I got another gear going. Yeah.
You shouting out your team though, because like I've owned my company for 17 years, from, you know, all by myself, single mom of 2 little kids, to I have this amazing team, and it's a beautiful thing. We can do so much more because of the wonderful people who support us. So before we transition to Q&A, I just wanted to thank you for this book. I wanted to thank you for being so vulnerable. Like, you showed us that the most sacred thing that we can do is to be ourselves and to share that with people. And it's a vulnerable thing, because people can weaponize your narrative against you. Yes. But yes, what we see is that other people get to become the best versions of themselves because of what you've done. And I really appreciate you for that.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for that.
All right, so it is time for our Q&A to begin.
Okay, I see some questions. You see the Q&A thing? Yeah, that's.
And I think Angelique is going to lead this portion for us. Yes. Okay.
Awesome. Yep, no problem. So yeah, before I jump into the Q&A, I want to thank both of you, Tiffany, just for your amazing questions, and just candor, and Arlan for being so candid and open. And I've heard you speak a lot in the past, and also a lot about the book as you've been promoting it, and I haven't heard this level of conversation. So thank you to you both for giving us such an amazing event. And so we have a lot of questions, so we're going to try and get through as many as we can. Couple of comments for questions. Mara and Umbaluka, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but they both said, Not a question, but this is already so good. And also, this is more of a comment, but I love the candor of this conversation. So, and in the comment section,
So
people are
much.
blowing up as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So first question is from Kelly. She says, "Hi, I'm a big fan from the Arlan Was Here blog days. I
Woo!
remember you doing a 10,000 Humans project, and I wonder if any of those experiences or people you met in that project sparked or led to where you are now. And if you could talk about those threads of one thing leading to another for your journey."
Yeah, I will leave it to people to get to see it in the book, because I know so many here have it on the way. Not any one individual, except for the ones that I did mention in the book, which were like people, like you just get to see how people are connected in such amazing ways, and how the world is so small. But the experience itself, I got to maybe 500 of the 10,000, and one day I've always wanted to pick it back up, but first I stopped because of SARS, and then I stopped because the world, my whole life changed, and now it's like, it's going to be at least 3 or 4 years till I could even try to do that. But it was the experience as a whole. It was going to different cities and seeing kind of the common threads. And again, I was in all kinds of neighborhoods, all kinds of groups, having conversations with people. And it was just a beautiful experience.
Awesome. I'm going to combine a couple of questions because there are some common threads. Katie asks, "What are you most excited about in the marketplace for the next 3 years?" And Alexis asks, what are the headlines in your draft document now looking ahead to 2025?
Okay, so what I'm excited about, I am excited about creative ways of working, but not necessarily so just remote work. I think remote work is very cool, and I do like the trend there. But it's not just that, because I think that is pretty trendy right now. Everybody's trying to figure out how do I capitalize on that. I'm very excited mainly on like individual ability to be your own boss and to have your own lane and to monetize your expertise and things like that. So for instance, I have an online course. I've been studying that whole world. I think is really interesting, and it's about to blow up. That whole online education has been, for like the last 10 years, has been pretty solid. And it's just about to I don't know how many X, the number of people who can share that way. So like those types of companies that make it easier for you to monetize your expertise, make payments easier even, but mostly on the side of like what's really creative in the online education space, building your own sort of consultancy, all of that. In fact, there are 2 companies, one that we already invested in and one that I will invest in later this year, that are along those lines. And so that's really exciting. Think of like Teachable and Circle and things like that. And I'm also interested in anything that speaks to seniors, entrepreneurship with seniors. So healthcare and caregiving for seniors is very interesting and very exciting, and I think important. But I'm also interested in something like, I'm looking for that company that just breaks out how do you get seniors to use the next 10, 20, 30 years of their life in a way that they're not sort of sent out to pasture. I think that's an exciting thing. And of course, anything that is truly about sustainability and however, it's a broad place, but I think venture capital as an asset class there should be maybe even, something legally that we have to invest there. I think we owe it, and it should be something that is like a mandate. And so I'll be looking there. What was the second question?
What are your headlines in your draft document now looking ahead to 2025?
I won't say what they are exactly, because it is sort of like that kind of, it does drive me. So I won't put it out there, but I will say that some of the topics are around the book. Like one of the things is that I do want, every time I look at a Glennon Doyle or a Mike, I think his last name is Thomas, who have these really best-selling books for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, and I look at the comments, not just the sales, but the comments and how it's like reaching people, and I study how that happens, I really do think like, oh, my book could do that, and have like the more people that read it, the more people that see it, the more maybe help there is, or maybe more inspiration, or even a good laugh for the day, you know? And so some of my headlines have to do with selling certain amounts, or reaching certain number of people, or having X number of books out over the next decade. And the rest are, like, you know, certain portfolio companies have this exit, have this result, this much revenue is generated by the whole portfolio, and it's just like a crazy number. I recently did say out loud publicly that I want to return $1 billion to my LPs, which are limited partners who invest in funds. I want to return $1 billion over the next 10 years, all inclusive of different things.
Excellent. I can't wait to see it and read the books. Angelo asks, what's something you wish you included in your book but didn't?
Ooh, there's so much. There's so much that I thought of later, or that I thought, oh, nobody's going to care about that. And then when I saw what people did resonate with, I was like, oh, they would love this one. So here's one. There's a whole Kanye story. So for a day and a half, I worked in Los Angeles. I worked as a production assistant, 2013, something like that. Maybe even earlier than that, maybe even further back than that, as a production assistant on something where Kanye was going to headline. It was like a gaming forum. And I went there. I had to use my roommate's car, and his car was just all raggedy. And the first day I get there, they say, we need somebody to drive and get these fire extinguishers across town. LA's traffic is crazy. And they said, send Arlan. So I get in this car. I've just driven it for the day. I don't know much about it. It starts to overheat halfway there. So I pull over into a parking lot of a thrift store, kind of in the neighborhood that I do recognize. So that was good. And I don't know anything about cars. So I lift the hood right away, and I try to open something, and it spurts out and hits my eyes. The hot water just goes, and I close my eyes and I scream, and I run in, feel my way in. I run in, and I said, it was my face off. Like, I thought my skin had melted. You know, I thought I couldn't see. It was terrifying, but I had to get these fire extinguishers. And so that's will be in the next book. What happened? No. But there is a part two to it.
Well, at least we know that your face didn't melt off. So yeah,
my face did not melt off, and I could see. I will tell you though, it's a great story of like ingenuity, because I got those fire extinguishers back down 30 minutes away with all kinds of situations. I went to the hospital. The doctor said that if I didn't have contact lenses in, it would have burned my corneas.
Oh.
And Arlan, of course you got those fire extinguishers.
But I got those because they said if they didn't have the fire extinguishers, the show couldn't go on. Oh. And I'm a professional, so the show had to go on.
Indeed it did. Well done.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I have so many questions, but I have to focus on other people's questions. Geez, okay. It would not be an Arlan or Backstage event if people didn't ask business questions. Right. So we have a few people in here asking about, talking about your fund. Are you fundraising? How they can help you raise? Is there a minimum investment to invest in Backstage as an LP?
Oh, as an LP. Hey, I have the perfect answer for that. Usually we have different answers. Favorite answer yet, BackstageCrowd.com. Backstage Crowd is our syndicate we've had since June. It has 2,000 members. Half of them approximately are accredited. The other half are not accredited, meaning they make 200, one thing. Meaning they make 200,000 a year or more, you're accredited. In most cases, it's a lot more to it, but that's usually accredited. You choose that as a selection. If you don't choose not accredited, they invest alongside us. So we've had 8 deals on the platform, raised more than $1.3 million in the last 4 months for those 8 companies. Half of the companies are from Black women. The other half are from Black men or Latinx founders. And it is we invest in the same companies. Like it's our follow-on, or it's us investing in the types of companies that we would. But instead of us saying, okay, we're going to put in 25K or 100K because that's what we can put together, and it's just, internal, we give the deal to the syndicate, and we say, look, we just negotiated $200,000 into this. Normally we'd be able to put in 50K or 100K. Do you want to each put in 1,000? There's a limit to how many people can do it, but do you want to put in $1,000, $2,000? And we all, and that goes here, and then it goes as one person on the cap table for the founder. So they don't have to deal with 100 people, they deal with us. So we manage the deal for the syndicate members, and we manage the deal for the founder. And there's all kinds of love for it on Twitter and Instagram, where people are like, I'm an angel investor, or I was an aspiring angel investor. I knew I made that amount of money at work, but I didn't know how to make an investment. Now I've invested in 5 companies led by Black founders, and now I understand how to do it. And then for us, we're able to throw our weight a little bit, more around, because we can take the 200K allocation that we normally get. We get $1 million allocation, but we don't always have it. And we can go in. So we did actually our first $1 million deal in July, I believe it was, through the syndicate.
That's super exciting. I'm so excited to see what happens with the Backstage crowd, and also to put my $1,000.
Yeah, everybody can sign up, because even if you're not accredited, we do non-accredited deals. So everybody here who wants to invest in underrepresented, underestimated founders can go to backstagecrowd.com, be part of the party. And that doesn't go to us, right. It goes to the company.
Y'all better take that invitation. That's a serious invitation.
Now, if there's anybody who does want to, talk shop, if you're at a fund or something like that, you can reach me at my first name at backstagecapital.com. We can talk about larger amounts. We do have LPs, of course, who are, invest much more directly. But I think, to me, that's what I would be doing. I'd be all over Backstage Crowd if it were me.
And I think we have time for one more question, because I know you have a hard stop at 5. So, there's a lot of people asking about, when is too early to begin raising? Is there an optimal stage? And how does someone become ready to pitch someone like Backstage?
Yeah, what I would say is, anyone on this call who is not already signed up to our newsletter, go to backstagecapital.com, sign up to our newsletter, because tomorrow we're going to send out a mixtape newsletter. It's called the mixtape, that I believe is going to have a link either to the video that we just did about this very question in our office hours, or it'll link to the next office hours. And I know we're doing something here too, but get on that, because you'll get a lot of information from that. And we only have a minute left. Chacho put it in the chat for you. So go to backstagecapital.com, look around the site. There's all kinds of questions, because it's not an easy answer. It's not a straightforward answer, but we have this week, in fact, either we can take the clip of that question, which I think would be a smart idea, and I'm talking to my team, or we can take the whole video and share that, because we go into detail about that very question in a video that we have.
Excellent, excellent. Well, again, I do want to be respectful of your time, and I just really, again, want to send enormous thanks to you for being so open and for joining us, and again to Tiffany for being so great and just asking the best questions in the world. And honestly, I'm still thinking about your eyeballs almost being burned off. And so please get on that book, because I need to know.
Russell, we need that book.
I have so many questions. I can't think of the name of the person that writes the books that takes 7 years to write a book. But please don't be that person. I need to know. I have questions.
I have plans for faster books now. Yeah. Yeah. That's just one story I forgot to put in. There are more. Yeah. I'll do the other IHOP story too, because there's a second IHOP.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think you should do a book of outtakes where it's just random short stories that don't tie to anything but are just amazing. But
I love it. I might do something like that, like in between time, or do like a
awesome. Thank you, Arlan. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for the awesome questions, and thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Angelic. Sorry, how do you pronounce it? Angelic or Angelica?
It's Angelique. It's Angelique.
Angelique. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's 2 options. You're like, neither.
It's all good. It's all good.
Angelique. It's all good. Got here.
It's fine. And to everyone, the other founders that are doing the office hours with the Backstage team, please get on the other Zoom link. We will see you there. And this recording will be available on our YouTube channel. So thank you.
I say how much of a great opportunity that is to be able to talk to the Backstage team, like one-on-one like that. That's pretty cool. I might jump in just to get some information. No, but I gotta go. But thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.